The next verse also begins without a subject.
Quran 80, verse 13. In books held in exalted, kept pure and holy, by the hands of scribes, honorable, pious, just, noble, and righteous.
This verse alone makes Islam an open and shut case, condemning Muhammad as a fraud. The
exalted books kept pure and holy
were the Torah, Psalms, and Gospels. They were the only books, other than the Quran, that Allah and Muhammad said were divinely inspired scripture. Yet there were no Quranic scribes at this point, as the Quran was not written. The first Islamic scribe during Muhammad's lifetime resigned within days of accepting the job, only to be hunted down and assassinated by the Prophet. The real scribes of this day were a well-known order of devoutly pious Jews. But the scripture they
kept pure and holy
was the antithesis of the Quran. Coveting what rightfully belonged to Yahweh, Islam's dark spirit categorically stated that the Bible was his book. Equally important, he said that it had been kept pure and holy by honorable scribes. So wouldn't you know it, the first time he said something nice, it killed him. If the Bible was kept pure, there is no possible explanation for the divergence in Quranic stories, the difference in gods or doctrines. If Allah said this, as Muhammad attests, he committed suicide because he destroyed Islam. For if the Bible is, as Allah said, inspired and pure, then a book that repudiates its doctrines and damns its people can be neither inspired nor pure. It's simple logic. If B is right, and if Q condemns B, Q cannot be right. So what does that make Q? The Meccans knew Muhammad was wrong. They just didn't know why. During the 7th century, they were about as unfamiliar with biblical scripture as most agnostics today. They knew enough to rebuke Muhammad for stealing Jewish stories, saying that the Quran was nothing more than other people's lore. But while they recognized his plagiarism was uninspired, his twisted variants were not nearly as incriminating to them as they are to us. Muhammad's agenda was, however, totally transparent. Eager to make submission sound godly, the new prophet latched onto the only credible monotheistic religion, heritage, and scriptures available to him. He plagiarized them, twisting stories to serve his scheme, a scheme that could only have prevailed in the illiterate and isolated realm of Central Arabia. Muhammad began his crusade to confiscate control of the family business by stealing the God and doctrines of the Hanifs. When they proved insufficient, he changed his Qibla, turning himself into a biblical prophet. The first attempt was feeble, as we have seen. It would take Muhammad some time to learn enough about the Bible to turn it into the cornerstone of Islam. Yet within months of selecting that new cornerstone, Muhammad would change his Qibla once again. This time he pulverized the rock upon which he had built his new faith, and returned to his pagan past. Coming full circle, he distanced himself from the Bible by legitimizing every aspect of Qusay's religious scam, the Hajj pilgrimage, the religious tax, the war banners, the Ramadan fasts, the holy months, the Kaaba, and even the Black Stone. The place of prostration changed from Jerusalem to Mecca, the apple of his eye, the place and people he wanted to control. But the price was high. Any flirtation between Islam and rational thought died an ugly death during these transformations. Mutually exclusive doctrines were praised and repudiated, treated as if they were the same and separate. Islam self-destructed, as did its God and his messenger. Now, if it would only die in the minds of those who use it to terrorize the world. Continuing with the
He frowned.
Surah.
Quran 80, verse 17. Be cursed, man, he has self-destructed. From what stuff did he create him? From nutfa, male and female semen drops. He created them, and set him in due proportion.
The continual cursing of man has grown wearisome. Muhammad and his Lord appear to have self-destructed. There is no female semen. And whose nutfa drops do you suppose were used? It also bears mention here that Allah claims to have created man 35 times in his Quran. The method, however, changes. There are 25 variations of the material he used. While we're on the subject, I thought you might get a chuckle out of these.
Bukhari. The Prophet said, if a man has sexual intercourse with his wife and gets discharged first, the child will resemble the father. And if the woman gets discharged first, the child will resemble her.
That was brilliant, as was this sermon on predestination.
Bukhari. The Prophet said, Allah has appointed an angel in the womb. And the angel said, Lord, a drop of semen discharge. Lord, a clot. Lord, a piece of flesh. And then, if Allah wishes to complete the child's creation, the angel will say, Lord, male or female? Lord, wretched or blessed in religion? What will his livelihood be? What will his age be? The angel writes all of this while the child is in the womb of its mother.
In other words, our fate is sealed. The Islamic God chooses whom he wishes to abuse. This lecture on man's 4-month gestation follows an assertion that Muhammad's insights were
truly inspired,
and thus Scripture.
Bukhari. Allah's apostle, the true and truly inspired, said, regarding the matter of the creation of a human being, humans are put together in the womb of the mother in 40 days. Then he becomes a clot of thick blood for a similar period. He becomes a piece of flesh for 40 days. Then Allah sends an angel who is ordered to write out 4 things: the new creature's deeds, livelihood, date of death, and whether he will be blessed or wretched. He will do whatever is written for him.
Dr. Muhammad went on to preach,
Bukhari. When a human being is born, Satan touches him at both sides of the body with his 2 fingers. That is why it cries.
In Judeo-Christianity, death came as a result of man turning away from God. In Islam, death is the result of God.
Quran 80, verse 20. As for the way, he has made it easy for him. Then he causes him to die. Then he assigns his grave. Then, when he pleases, he raises him to life again. Nay, by no means has man fulfilled what the Lord has commanded him.
In Islam, disease is also divine.
Bukhari. The Prophet said, no contagious disease is conveyed without Allah's permission.
Fortunately, there is a cure.
The Prophet said, if a housefly falls in your drink, you should dip it in the drink, for one of its wings has a disease, and the other has the cure for the disease.
However, since fevers are the result of disease, and since Allah lives in hell...
Bukhari. I heard the Prophet saying, fever is from the heat of the hell fire. Quran 80, verse 24. Then let a man look at his food and how we provide it. We pour water in showers, and we split the earth in fragments, and produce therein corn, grapes, and nutritious fodder, olives, dates, enclosed gardens, dense with trees, fruits, and grasses.
Phraseology that might make sense metaphorically is used improperly as a proof statement.
At length, when the deafening cry comes, that day shall a man flee from his own brother, and from his mother and father, and he will abandon his wife and children. Each one of them will have enough concern to make him indifferent to others.
Allah has prepared punishments so horrific, men and women will abandon their children, parents and spouses, to avoid enduring it. I dare say, only a man who had suffered such torment would attribute such behavior to God.
Quran 80, verse 38. Some faces that day will be beaming, laughing, and other faces will be dust-stained, veiled in darkness. Such will be the rejectors, the doers of iniquity, the disbelievers, the wicked.
Islam is wickedness veiled in darkness.